At some point, you have to ask yourself, do I really want a different life, or am I addicted to the story that I am struggling? I spent a lot of my life playing the victim to my life circumstances and convincing myself that just because I had been this way for my entire life, that this is what I was destined to be forever. And I had to figure out the long and hard way that that is just simply not the truth. And I want to help you if you're a woman who feels stuck in her life and thinks, well, this is the way that I've always been, so this is the way that I'm always going to be. I want to call you out and help you recognize that you may actually be addicted to your struggle story, addicted to finding comfort in things constantly being hard, addicted to convincing yourself that you can't actually have the life that you want for yourself, and success and happiness and joy and accomplishment, well, that only happens for the people around you, but never for you. And that, my love, could not be further from the truth. So if you're ready to ditch your struggle story, you're in for a treat with today's episode. The truth about life is that we don't just have habits and routines that we participate in, we have an identity that we have created within ourselves attached to those habits and routines. And if you grew up in a way that wasn't necessarily easy, like I was, or you have a track record of being a person who quit on herself pretty consistently, like I have, then it's really easy to stay stuck in a story of this is my reality. And when we've convinced ourselves that this is a part of my identity and this is who I am and this is how I'm always going to be, then change begins to feel impossible. But you don't just have an experience with struggle. You have built a relationship with it, one that has become a part of your life, but it's time for that to stop because the truth is life gets to be amazing. Life gets to be enjoyable. Life gets to be easy. Life gets to be fun. Life gets to be fulfilling. Life gets to be all of the things that you want it to be, but the more you fight to stay in that struggle, the more you're going to stay stuck there. I will say it again, you do not have to fight for the things that are holding you back in life. If you notice that there are things that are limiting you from living the life that you want for yourself, then you have to decide, I don't want to fight for this anymore. But the truth is, many of us aren't just addicted to our struggle story. We've actually found a way to want to stay there. Why? Because it's familiar. You almost may even have a fear of what would life be like if it wasn't so hard. You know how they say work smarter, not harder? I actually struggled with this for a really long time because I had my level of worthiness attached to my level of productivity, attached to my level of work and effort. So I felt the harder I worked, the better I got to feel about myself. So when something felt like a struggle, it felt like an uphill mountain that I had to climb all by myself, I then felt like I get to feel worthy. I get to feel deserving. I get to feel good because look at what I had to do to get here. Sitting in struggle became familiar for me. And so it became a reality that I was comfortable living in. After I started doing work on myself and really healing the relationship that I had with myself, healing other relationships in life, I did years of inner child healing work to heal the relationship that I had with my dad, but hint, hint, I still have daddy issues. I started to realize that I was creating a life that was calm, a life that was peaceful, a life that didn't include so much struggle. I got out of debt and became financially free. I'm able to do what I love every single day and support myself in doing it. I'm in relationships that I really love and care about. I have boundaries and standards, not just for others, but for myself. And I found that I was in a really happy place in life. And what I began to realize is it's uncomfortable here because I grew up in a story of struggle. I grew up in a story of chaos. I grew up where it felt like struggle was familiar. And if you're resonating with that right now, I need you to know that struggle does not need to remain familiar. And I hope and pray that you listen to what I'm going to share with you so that you can get to a place where chaos no longer feels familiar. Chaos and struggle no longer feel like things that are a part of your normal and daily life, and instead, peace and calm and love feel like the new normal for you. But while our struggle story may feel familiar, it's actually limiting us in so many ways and truly holding us back. But we use it as a tool to keep ourselves safe, because you know what happens when we stay stuck in a struggle story is we get to avoid a lot of responsibility in life. Oftentimes, people who are stuck in struggle stories identify as victims and they get to avoid taking responsibility for things. If we feel like we're going to struggle for the rest of our lives and we're never going to achieve the things that we want, guess what that gives us permission to do? stop trying. And if we stop trying, we don't have to take responsibility. And if we stop trying, we don't have to put in effort. And if we stop trying, we can just stay where we are without ever having to explain it, because this is who I am and this is how I've always been. And so this is who I am going to stay. And therefore, we get to avoid responsibility. Staying stuck in our struggle story also keeps us safe from failure. Because when you put yourself out there and you go after new things because you want to become a different person, guess what's going to happen? You are going to face hardships. You are going to face failures. And when we stay in a place of struggle, in that place of familiarity, we get to avoid all of that because we're just not trying. So we never have to deal with this idea of failure. We get really addicted to not feeling good, so much so that we don't even know how good feeling good feels, because we're stuck in this place where we're living a struggle every single day and it's just become so comfortable. Avoiding responsibility, avoiding taking risks, avoiding failure. But you know what else we're avoiding? The happy, loving, fulfilling lives that we truly deserve. Another thing that I think is worth considering is asking yourself, who am I without my struggle story? If I don't have this addiction to struggle, if I don't have this story of struggle, if I don't have this story of being a victim, if I don't have this story of being stuck, who am I actually in my life? We become addicted to the story because it's who we've been, but we think that that's what we need to remain with in our identity. And we just simply don't. You can become a different person, but it's going to require you being comfortable shedding that old identity. And shedding feels scary because it requires us to then take responsibility and step into a new up-leveled version of ourselves. So how do we break free from this addiction to our struggle story? How do we become okay taking responsibility for our lives, living in a place that feels a little bit unfamiliar and uncomfortable? How do we become okay with facing failure and saying, I'm going to step into a new identity, an identity of a woman who doesn't struggle anymore, an identity of a woman who is certainly not comfortable in the struggle, a woman who is living a life that is joyful and peaceful and fulfilling and happy, because that is what you deserve. The first thing we need to do is we need to call it what it is and be honest with ourselves about the fact that we have gotten really comfortable in our struggle story, that we have allowed ourselves to settle into this reality and this belief that life has always been hard, and so therefore life is always going to be hard. Are there hardships in life? Absolutely. We all face them. We all deal with them. They are unavoidable. But I do not believe that that means that life has to unequivocally be hard and be challenging. I don't think that every single thing that we come up in front of in life has to be the biggest mountain that we've ever climbed and the biggest hardship that we've had to overcome. I think it is a mindset to decide that life gets to be easy, that life gets to be joyful, that your success gets to be effortless, that you get to be a woman who creates the reality that she wants for herself, not one that is surrounded by a story of struggle and being a victim. So get honest with yourself and call it what it is. You are addicted to the story of struggling. The second thing we need to do is we need to stop repeating the story and looking for evidence in our lives as to why life is hard, as to why we are stuck in this struggle, as to why we are victims. It took me until almost 30 years old to realize that I was playing a victim in many areas of my life. I was blaming everyone around me for my reality. It was my dad's fault that I was an emotional eater because he never should have abandoned me. It was my parents' fault that I was $65,000 in debt because no one ever taught me how to be financially responsible. It was my family's fault that I dropped out of college 7 times because I had no examples of people going away to school and being successful. Everything was everyone else's fault, and I did not want to take responsibility. And I just kept repeating this narrative to myself that I was a victim and I was going to struggle forever. And guess what? If you repeat a narrative to yourself on a daily basis, that, my love, becomes your truth. So if you don't want to live that reality anymore, you have to start fighting for something different. So stop repeating the narrative that you are going to struggle for the rest of your life. Stop repeating the narrative that you are a victim. Stop repeating the narrative that you are incapable of changing, because when you repeat it, it is keeping you stuck in that exact place. And you and I, we are women who are no longer fighting for our limitations. If we don't want to be there anymore, then we are not convincing ourselves that that is where we are going to be forever. Next thing we need to do is recognize that the identity that we have been living in, one of struggle, is not one that we want to be anymore. And so we need to start identifying a new reality for ourselves, a new identity for ourselves, and start seeing ourselves as who we want to be rather than who we have been. And I know that this can be really challenging when the only evidence you have of your life is what has already happened. But I encourage you to look around at people who you admire and people who you can see have achieved things and maybe even come from a similar background as you, and start looking to them as hope and inspiration. One of the things that I see far too many people doing in life is looking at successful people and looking immediately for the differences between the two of them. So if you look at people that you admire and you think, oh my gosh, she's achieved things that I would love to achieve, but I could never do that because she's different than me in this way, and this way, and this way, and this way. I want you to stop doing that. When you find people who have created something for themselves that you would love to have, I want you to start looking for similarities between you and that person, because that is going to help create a new bank of evidence for you that you can create the reality that you want. But it's really hard to identify yourself differently when your track record and all of the evidence that you have is evidence that you are stuck in a struggle story. So start looking for hope and inspiration outside of yourself from people who you can relate to and identify with. See the things that they embody, the qualities, the characteristics, the habits, the routines, and start acting as they would act. Start stepping into that new identity that you crave to have and be in your life, because that is how you become the person that you want to be. Act as if you were already her right now. The next thing I'm going to encourage you to do is get comfortable in it feeling unfamiliar. Your struggle story right now feels like this big old warm security blanket, but at the end of the day, that blanket is going to smother you and suffocate you and kill you if you don't allow yourself to break free from it. So I want you to throw that security blanket off, and I want you to allow yourself to be a little bit chilly. I want you to allow yourself to be a little bit uncomfortable, because in that discomfort is how you are actually going to create the growth that you want in your life. If you are still convincing yourself that growth and change is going to feel comfortable, you are lying to yourself, and I need you to stop it. Learn to embrace the unfamiliarity and discomfort that comes with stretching yourself. If you want to break free from who you have been and become somebody new, it's going to require stretching and expansion in a way that is going to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but you, my love, are strong enough to handle it. And the fifth and final thing that I want you to practice doing is learn to stay when it starts to feel like this isn't me. When you are changing your life, you are going to do a massive shedding of your current identity, which means it is going to start to feel very unfamiliar. It is going to start to feel like this isn't me. This doesn't feel like me. This doesn't seem like me. That's good, because you are wanting to change who you are. If you've been watching me for the last 2 years or so, you will probably notice that my style has changed quite a bit. I used to be a skinny jeans girly, and you're like, Jessica, what do skinny jeans have to do with changing your identity? I've wanted to change my style over the course of the last year, but when I put clothes on that I'm not used to seeing myself in, my immediate reaction is, this doesn't feel like me. But isn't that exactly what I'm going for? Because I don't want to stay the current version of myself. If you truly want to break free from your struggle story addiction, you have to get comfortable doing things that don't feel like you. So in the moments where you look around and you're like, this doesn't really feel like me, good. That is exactly what we want. So learn to stay with it. What I want to leave you with today is a reminder that you do not have to stay the version of yourself who struggles. You need to make the decision that you are going to stop choosing to be her. Easier said than done, but the truth is, my love, you deserve a life that is peaceful, free from chaos, free from struggle, free from stress. You deserve a life that feels amazing. You deserve to break free from the victim mindset and the struggle addiction that is keeping you stuck where you are. As familiar and comfortable as it feels, do not be a woman who chooses familiar hells over unfamiliar heavens, okay? I love you guys so very much. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. You taking the time to be here putting your energy into consuming what I am sharing with you means so, so much. It would mean the world if you left a comment on this episode. Let me know what you took away from it. Make sure you like it and be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future episodes every Wednesday here on the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. I love you guys so very much, and I will chat with you next week. See ya.